Okay. All right, go for it.
I mean, it's HDMI.
Should we record? Okay. All right, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hi, everybody.
This is team Zooming today. We're not sure how this is going to go.
The only thing I could say is shut down and come back up.
Yeah, somebody's really loud. Whoever that was that said shut down and come back up, we can hear you loud and clear.
I think that's range.
Is it range? Okay. Well, welcome to our Zoom session, the final one of this year, and my final one, period, on the workshop model. As you know, this is Sheila Hill. I'm Kathy Shada, and we're here today just to really give you a foundational understanding of why we're moving to a workshop model, what the workshop model is, and how this is going to blend with our new Basil series, because as I believe Elisa told the K2 or K1 people, it's not your grandma's Basil program anymore. It's a little bit more advanced. So, okay, why am I not moving down here? Okay, so if you want to read the quote that's on, hang on, we're not quite. Oh, we forgot we had animation in here. We've been a little busy lately. Rehearsal did not go smoothly. Okay, go to the next slide. All right. So, what's the best that could happen? Click again. We have a quote coming up here from Debbie Miller, and what we'd like you to do is read the quote and then respond in the chat box. And Elise is also supervising our chat box. Click again. So once you've read the quote on the screen, respond in the chat box so we can see what people are thinking. Don't all type at once.
I was going to say, anybody? Hello? Okay, there we go. We have a response from Shan's. We're waiting for others. Wrong.
I like that, planning for more brilliance.
Mm-hmm. Canada. Shaw.
Okay, Momo's on her way to get it, okay? Yes. Okay, be looking for she's gonna be a little bit late now, okay? She'll be
Price.
Oh, Liz Remler, you're playing right into our hands today. We're going to be talking about that planning because it is going to be seriously necessary.
Very much so.
And that integration between reading and writing is huge.
Yep. Okay, let me see if we have more.
Okay, we're going to the next slide.
I don't know why it won't let me click.
All right, so why? I want you to, before we start clicking on this slide, I want you to turn and talk to the people you're watching with, or if you're by yourself, just brainstorm. How would you describe a workshop model? I'll give you a couple minutes to talk about this in your groups.
If you can't hear, move closer to that computer. A workshop model. Why is a workshop model important?
How would you describe a workshop model?
How would you describe?
Any workshop model. What is a workshop model? Oh, I was walking out.
Realize that was gonna happen.
Oh, you're doing it back over there. Okay, you take the rest of the slide.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Several people, it's all schools
Okay,
there.
so you had a chance to turn and talk with your partners about what you think a workshop model is, yes, how you would describe a workshop model. So
You're going to click on the
we
slide
are
again.
going to go and click on the slide, if I can get this to work. There we go. First, the very nature and demands of our new standards really require that we be more connected and integrated than ever before. And I think Kathy has already spoken to that. This approach fosters a climate of choice and allows time for self-directed and differentiated learning. Research shows that when children have a choice in what they're learning, that's going to help build some autonomy and help kids to be motivated. And lastly, it allows time for the teacher to provide individualized instruction and feedback. So during the workshop model, the teacher may be working with a group of students, or the teacher may be working one-on-one, while kids are independently applying what they've learned through the mini lessons.
Okay, I see some people have typed in here too, talking about the workshop model, that there's a read aloud, a mentor text, mini lessons, small group with teacher conferences, easier for differentiation. And I think too, one of the things we're going to encounter in here is in the introduction to the new standards, it really talks about the self-directed learner. And so this gives those kids that may be ready for advanced academic things some choice in what they're doing during that small group time. So we'll go over the plan for that in a little bit.
All right, so what is it? What does it look like? So as you can see on the slide, in its basic form, you all have an idea of things that you think might happen. There's going to be a whole group, there's going to be some partner and individualized, and then there's going to be some small group.
And you notice we've split this Zoom session into two groups. Elisa did the K1 group, and we're doing 2-5 because this is going to look a little bit different as you go up in grade levels. And 2, we're trying to make 2 look a little bit more like 3rd grade than 1st grade.
But I am going to speak to some of the differences that you might experience in 2nd grade. And one thing I wanted to bring to your attention on this slide is you notice the last part of the actual workshop is always going to be the wrap up and share of learning. This is a way that we can help our students to be more metacognitive and really think about how they had the chance to apply what they learned during the mini lesson.
But first, let's talk a little bit about our new series, the new HMH reading materials, because you probably haven't seen them unless somebody on your campus was on the textbook committee. We're really excited about HMH. All the publishing companies we looked at had so much to offer, too much. We can't get it all in. But the thing about HMH is they really reflect the most recent research and practices. If you get a chance to look at their list of contributors and authors, there's going to be a lot of familiar names on there, and they didn't just lend their name to the series, they actually worked on it. They've also included rich, authentic text with incredible exposure to new vocabulary. It's much more robust than the series we're coming off of now. There's a strong correlation from year to year beginning in kindergarten, using the Notice and Note signposts from Kylene Beers and Bob Probst. And those need to be taught from kindergarten all the way up because we're just going to build on those. The anchor charts will be similar from year to year, and the practice of close reading. Next year, it really doesn't matter how many years of teaching you have under your belt. Everybody's going to be in the same boat. And we don't want the boat to ship. It's a sink. We're going to be here to support you, but it's going to be a very new endeavor for everybody, including us. You'll notice that when you see the curriculum, August 1st is our deadline to have it in there. If it's possible, it will be there beforehand, but that's the must-have date. And I think you'll notice that there are a lot of things you must teach. And we're using this or having this heavy reliance on the materials because we need to see where the gaps are. We need to see where the holes are. So we can start supplementing with other things over the years, just as we did before.
Also, one thing that's going to be new this next year is we are no longer going by weeks the way it appears in Eduforia right now. We're moving towards grouping things into modules. So in grades 2 through 5, we are going to be using modules that last about 3 weeks. And that is how the materials are going to be grouped together. Now, one thing that's a little different for 2nd and 3rd grade, they're going to have a 0 week that's going to be built in. And it's going to provide you the time to set up routines and procedures for the different workshops.
All right, so depending on your grade level, the time distribution of the day will vary. Go ahead and click on that. There will be 3 different workshops. There'll be the foundational skills workshop, the reading workshop, and the writing workshop. And you will have an interactive overview through Google that will take the place of what's been in Eduforia before. It'll be a link to those, where you can actually insert things in there or click on links to other documents to support the lessons. And everything will be color-coded. When you go to your TEKS training this summer, the foundational strand is purple, so your overview is purple, has a purple header on it. Your reading workshop will have blue, and your writing workshop will have green.
And you'll notice that it's set up that way in the resources as well.
Most application of the direct instruction from all 3 of these workshops may occur in stations. So you may do an initial teach piece where the kids go off then to their stations and implement what you have taught them. And again, this will foster student independence as mandated in the TEKS, and it also allows for differentiation.
Okay, so let's jump in and look at the first workshop, which is foundational. Alrighty, In foundational workshop, as you can see, there's going to be, like we said before, a whole group lesson. There's going to be some independent, and then there's going to be some share time at the very end. So you're going to have the direct teach piece, and on our slide, we've indicated here that it might be at least 3 days a week, depending on your grade level. If you're second or third grade, it might appear more, it might appear less, and it's definitely going to be different in fourth and fifth grade. As I stated earlier, at the very end, there's always going to be a wrap-up, share, or closure. So a little bit more detail about what happens during foundational workshop. We are going to have high-frequency word games, and yes, we're going to have word walls. Those of you who've been teaching for a long time, like me, you remember back in the day, we used to have word walls in third grade, and I don't know if it was fourth and fifth grade, but I know definitely in third grade. So that's going to be something that's going to be coming back. We will have mini lessons for phonics, spelling, as well as word study. And then phonemic awareness will appear in second grade.
And let me talk a little about that for fourth and fifth grade. You will not be required to have a word wall up in your room, but you will be required to have students with individual word walls, and you will be given words each week to add to those and hold the kids accountable for reading and writing.
Let's see, I don't know if that's everything. Yep, that's it. So now that we've talked a little bit about it, for foundational skills workshop, what confirmed your thinking about workshop and what challenged your thinking? Okay, so I want you guys to take a moment to kind of think and chat, and then you can answer us in the chat or you can answer us out loud.
Just make sure you unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Oh my God, that was big.
For 1 second, unmuted.
So did that confirm anybody's thinking about the workshop model? Okay, the mini lessons, okay.
I think I heard someone that was trying to talk, but I can't.
Somebody's raising their hand.
Can you hear us?
It's Price. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yes. If we, a lot of what you guys have just talked about confirmed what we had discussed previously with mini lessons and then the independent work with the kind of like stations or rotations.
Okay, good. So you have a feel for what's coming. Anything else? What challenged thinking? Okay. Challenge stations because we don't know what they are getting out of the stations. There will be some accountability measures necessary. Some of that will come through digital use, through photographs or recordings. There may be a work product, but yes, I'm glad you brought that up because that is a definite necessity that there's some accountability for what's going on in the stations and expectations of learning.
And I just want to speak to, there's a campus that said wrapping our minds around the change to modules. I really don't feel like it will feel like anything different. Every week you're going to be starting on a new section, I should say. And the way that it's set up, you can look ahead to see what you're going to be doing within those modules. So although we don't have everything numbered consecutively or sequentially like we're used to, you're still going to be able to get in the amount of curriculum that you need to get in throughout the school year. So I really feel like that's just something that's just a surface difference, if that makes sense. Time management may be a challenge, Canada. Yes, time management may be a challenge.
And we're actually going to address that a little bit in the slides coming up.
You're welcome.
Dokie. So now that we've talked a little bit about foundational workshop, let's get into reading workshop. And you see on our slide that we have the same groupings like we had before. Reading workshop might look a little bit different depending on what grade level you're teaching. So let me go ahead and click here. So there's always going to start, it's always going to start with whole group instruction, which is going to be your mini lesson, right? That's something that we're all aware of. Now, during your reading workshop, in second grade, you may have guided reading happening while kids are in literacy stations, and or they may be doing strategy groups on the days that you may not have guided reading lessons happening. This will allow you to give some one-on-one attention and or some just group attention to some kids that you know that are having some struggles. And then you're always going to end with your wrap-up whole group, which is the share time.
Click on those next two. One of the things we want to go into that's really different, and it's going to take some getting used to. Reading comprehension, especially in 4th and 5th grade and even in 3rd grade, when you read a new piece of text, the first day you read it, you will be reading the whole thing. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm just going to be honest with you up front, these are long, excellent pieces of text, but they're long. And so it's very possible on the days that you introduce a new piece of text and you do kind of a DRTA type read with them, where the kids are reading, it's about kids reading again, then the next couple days you'll be going back into those same pieces of text for close reading, much shorter mini lessons. So the days you launch a module or read the initial teach piece, you may not do stations that day. So it's going to take some getting used to and some scheduling things. 3rd grade and 4th grade have optional read alouds that are included, and we haven't really put it in anywhere yet, but we still encourage you to read aloud to your kids all throughout the day. You know, informational pieces or of the novel you're reading to the class, that's separate from this. You're going to get a lot of training on how to use the materials, and how to do the self-sustained reading with the teacher conferring. Everything will have documentation. You'll have conference notes from reading conferences.
I just went in and put it into the white space for week 35 in grades 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. Elise is talking to somebody. Her sound's on.
I just muted it.
It's coming through your mic.
Oh, you're kidding. Okay.
We're sitting so close to each other, you guys can probably hear. One thing I wanted to point out, if you look at this, the box that says reading comprehension daily, you see 2nd grade might have a read aloud. 2nd grade might be slightly different. There might be some interactive read alouds that you will be doing, and the interactive read aloud comes with an item called a book sticks. And a book stick is kind of like a sticky note that goes on the back of your read aloud. And it's kind of like an interactive read aloud guide. It has like questions and things you can ask your students to kind of spur discussion. And it also has some teacher tips. So that's the one thing that might be slightly different in second grade.
Okay, so as you think about reading workshop, we want to know what gives you peace right now and what gives you pause.
What gives you peace?
Everything about going.
Oh, good, good.
And the adoption, which would be nice too.
Okay, we can't, are you talking among yourself or did you want us to answer something?
How about we mute everybody for just a moment to give you some time to talk about this, and then we'll come back in about a minute.
So, everybody's muted right now. All righty, I'm gonna unmute everybody. A little more information about the upper grades, specifically 4th, 5th.
Oh, I think we missed that. Somebody was talking and we had you all on mute.
We are giving kids independent time to read, and we are giving them time to dive back into the reading pieces, not a one-time read.
No, it is not a one-time read.
No.
The initial day, you read the entire piece. Like the first week of 4th grade, they read Flora and Ulysses, and they read the entire thing with teacher support and questioning and discussion along the way. Then the next 2 days, they come back and do close reads, looking at, one day might be author's purpose and author's craft. Another day might be character development. So it is very different than the way it's been in the past, that you are constantly working with multiple standards during the week and different pieces of text.
That's crazy though, either way.
Say that a little bit louder for someone responding. That, I know that's something it's gonna be a little bit different, but if you think about it, the way that we're doing it presently, it's very difficult when you're reading. When we read, we use all kinds of different processes and strategies. And so we really want kids to understand that although they may be reading one piece of text, there's so many different things that you can do with that one piece of text. There are some weeks where there's several pieces of text, and in particular in 3rd grade, there's a week where there's just one piece of text, but you're doing different things with that one piece of text. So they look a little bit differently, so there's a variety.
In some weeks, you're reading 2 pieces of text. And that's the thing within the module. And like I say, you're going to get lots of training on this, but within the module in the upper grades, you could be reading 2 to 3 things in a week, usually 2. And then at the end of the module, you synthesize things across all those texts. So it's a much more rigorous demand on the reader and the understanding now.
And also, one thing people are going to have to get used to is the teacher is really going to have to make some decisions about how to manage your time and what the best choice is for your students. You are going to have some options within the week where you might teach some optional lessons. So there could be a week where there may be something that you feel like your students really need, and you teach an optional lesson as opposed to a different lesson, a lesson that might be listed. You might have a day where you can substitute a lesson in, if that makes sense.
And with the workshop approach, the other thing to remember is while some kids are working independently, you can be pulling students for that targeted instruction on things they're not understanding, and do a couple little short groups while other kids are independently working.
Okay, I want to address one question that I see in the chat. People are a little bit curious about how the modules are going to be structured. The things that might be happening within the module might be different. In particular, between 2nd and 3rd grade, foundational might look a little bit different because you might have phonemic awareness in 3rd and 2nd grade, but you don't have it in 3rd grade. In 2nd grade, there might be an interactive read aloud, but in 2nd grade, an interactive read aloud, but in 3rd grade, there may not be an interactive read aloud. So those are the little small things that might be different.
Okay, let's go on to the writing workshop, unless there's some other burning question.
Hey, Coles, what kind of stuff are we gonna do for discovery?
Again, you see that writing workshop is going to start with a mini lesson. This is going to be for 2nd and 3rd grade because your main foundational resource will be Lucy Calkins. So in 2nd and 3rd grade, the majority of your composition lessons will come from Lucy Calkins.
And every day you'll also have the daily mentor sentence routine. This is patterned after Jeff Anderson's Patterns of Power, and those materials will be provided for you with sentences pulled most often as we can from the text the kids are reading that week, so that it's got a lot of relevance to what they're doing.
Of course, during writer's workshop, the bulk of that time should be kids writing independently, and the teacher is holding conferences with kids. It could be one-on-one, or it could be with a small group. And as per usual, we're going to end with some type of a wrap-up or share.
And let me go back to the composition mini lessons for 3rd through 5th grade. Especially 4th and 5th. 4th grade, yours will look different than it is in the HMH materials, because star writing is still the same as it has been for the past few years, and there's not near enough of the star type writing in there. So we have gone through and culled out modules where they're writing things that are not required by the standards, and put in expository there so we get more star writing time. We very strongly suspect from what we've seen and heard that within a year after this next testing period, that the reading and writing tests will be combined and will look very different.
Oh, yeah. They're in.
We're interviewing her tomorrow.
Also, for formative assessment, because I know that's been a big push these last few years here in our district, it's really about keeping anecdotal notes on your students when you're doing writing. So when you're having your conferences, you really need to be taking notes so you can keep track of your students' progress.
Saying that they would,
That's right.
and I have all the brother.
Okay, so for writing workshop, what are your thoughts? Again, we're going to mute everyone and give you a chance to talk. You can respond when we come back, or you can respond in the chat. Alrighty, and we're back. So, what are your thoughts on writing a workshop? Oh,
I think you'll be surprised. The mini lessons that come with HMH are truly mini lessons, and
Yes.
because they are what teachers have a hard time doing, they are very focused. You're going to be doing your grammar mini teach with the mentor sentences first, and then teaching your composition mini lesson for whatever genre you're writing in. And then the kids go off and write while you confer or pull small groups for reteach or group conferences. So it is going to take flexibility on your part. Some days will be heavier on writing. Some days will be heavier on reading. Some days won't have foundational because there aren't foundational lessons for every day of the week in 4th and 5th grade. So it's going to be learning how to manage your workshop time.
right. And let me just speak to 2nd and 3rd grade for a moment. One thing that will really help you to keep your mini lessons mini is to make sure that you actually have read through the lesson prior to actually teaching it. We all know that Lucy Calkins is really considered to be professional development for the teacher. She puts so much information in her lessons. So if you take the time to try to read that ahead of time and be prepared, you can kind of synthesize that and make it your own and make sure you're hitting the most important points so that your mini lesson doesn't turn into a maxi lesson and your kids have the time to actually get some writing in, and then you have the time to do conferencing with your students.
Let's go on to the next one.
There we go.
So really, you kind of just played into our hands here because you've seen this if you've taken TILT, that successful learning occurs when 80% of the time is put into the planning and 20% of that is in instruction. And like we've always said, that's not necessarily formal planning. It's just mulling things over in the back of your mind and, kind of marinating yourself in what's coming. But this is one way to solve the time issue. The better you know what you're teaching it and how you're teaching it, the better it will go when you teach it.
Okay, so here are some tips for making this model work best for you. Keep the purpose and standards in the driver's seat. That is something that has always been around. Sometimes as teachers, we get a little wordy and sage on the stagey, and we kind of bird dog off of where we're supposed to be. So let's make sure we are targeting what our standards are supposed to be. Of course, be thoughtful about how you use your time. We spoke into that several times on this webinar. You are really going to have to be mindful about that. You might have to use a timer. That would have been me. Again, planning intentionally for all small groups and one-on-one conferences. Definitely need to make sure you have routines set up and that you stick to them. That's going to help keep your kids on track as well as you, because it's going to become a habit. Use systems for managing yourself and your materials. This goes back to making sure you have lots of routines and procedures put in place and that they're solid at the beginning of the year. There's some things that your kids can help you with. This is going to help them to become more independent, because really the workshop model is about you facilitating while you're allowing kids to be independent.
And your principals have been given a link to something called the GPS. And a lot of you will be seeing that this summer if you haven't heard about it already. It's kind of, if you think about it in a way, it's the GOTS we're getting rid of, but it has a little bit more about routines and strategies in it. So this may be the hardest thing for some people out there. It's time to shift control, and that's hard. That is very hard. I remember making this shift myself when I taught first grade. I would shift for a while, and then I'd kind of tighten reins, and then I'd get myself together and shift out again and give them more responsibility. But I'd like you to read what's on the screen and just give us some feedback on that. Can anyone relate to this, whether it's the kids in your classroom or your own kids at home?
Someone saying yes, all caps. Reading. Who's doing the work right now? So relatable.
Speaking of, why don't you go to the next slide? So if you're wanting to prepare in some way, and we know you are because we're inundated with phone calls and emails, and we are not near ready to give you what you want. So these are some books on the screen, and this is going to be recorded, and it'll be in our YouTube channel. We have a new YouTube channel, by the way. But we're wanting to prepare. The who's doing the work is just exactly what we're talking about. The notice the note and the reading nonfiction. Notice the note are two books by the authors, Kylene Beers and Robert Probst, and they're the authors of our new reading series, or some of the authors, but they literally touched every piece of text that has their signposts in it. And then especially for third, fourth, and fifth, these next two on writing are excellent things to read about helping you get ready to really set up your room for stations, for the workshop model, and just getting kids to be independent writers.
All righty. Are there any final questions, thoughts, or concerns? Anyone?
We do know primary teachers are much more talkative.
Yes. It's the end of the day. We know you're tired.
It's
We get
May.
it. We understand. All righty. So we're just going to share something I think is super cute. I think Elisa found this somewhere. You may feel tiny, like the rocket ship headed to that giant unknown planet, but remember, we are all on this ship together.
And I'm going to come back and answer that
I was
question.
about to do that. Go ahead.
And Elisa may be typing it, and that's fine too, so we have it in the chat record. But there was a decision made not to build in a 0 week for 4th and 5th, mainly because of testing. Your kids should be a little bit more mature, and you should be able to introduce things somewhat slowly. And put a lot of written direction in your stations that younger kids can't read and understand. So for right now, we are not building that in, because even with the way we're doing it now, we are going to run out of weeks before we run out of material. And we've got to get it all in before STAR.
Yes, that's important.
Any other questions?
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, this has been recorded, and we will put a link to this in the white space in our respective grade levels.
And I think we did find out just yesterday that the Google Plus communities for education did not go away. So we will put a link there also.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you.